You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, Jimmy, I'm Paul Stone. We're looking at the top games in college football this week, the games you're going to be watching, paying closest attention to. So let's get to them and give you an opinion, some data, some picks on these games. Let's start off with the big one in the Big Apple, and that is at MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands. It is Notre Dame and Navy. We've been talking about this Notre Dame schedule being pretty weak the whole season long, in the offseason as well, but who knew that Navy and Army would be this good? So now they're getting into the interesting part of the schedule. Notre Dame, this line is bounced all around very early. Currently at Bet Rivers, Notre Dame is 11.5 and 52.5. Navy, we talk about it, all kinds of offense. I mean, number 2 in the country in scoring, 45 points a game. Notre Dame only giving up 12 points a game. Their defense is the strength of their team this year. We've talked about Kai Horvath already, how improved he is, over 12 yards an attempt throwing the ball, 10 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and also 8 yards a rushing attempt, and 10 more TDs with his legs. So both Navy and Army, They got quarterbacks who can really run the option, but they also have quarterback-capable passers as well. That's not common. Navy, to me, Paul, Navy always gets up for Notre Dame, which much lesser talent than what they have this year. I think this number is a little bit too big, and I like Navy plus the points. Like I said, this game has come in. Whether it's the assignment defensive football that they force you to play, and whatever it is, and Navy always going to be up to play Notre Dame, maybe not so much the other way. But does Notre Dame have the attention with Navy's success this year? That's a concern of mine as well. But double digits, I got to take it in this one, where they traditionally give Notre Dame so much trouble. This Navy team is golden, man. Every week we put Army, Navy, Tulane in our money line parlays, and well, I'm going to take the middies in this one, plus 11.5 at New York.
Yeah, I tell you, Jimmy, being a power ratings guy, I looked at my power ratings, of course, and Kelly Ford, another guy I respect, and of course Jeff Sager, and from a power rating standpoint, and it's largely due to Navy's schedule. Navy's schedule, man, have they been impressive. They have demolished their 6 opponents. They've outscored their opposition by over 25 points a game, beat Memphis on the road 56-44. But that schedule's 144th strongest in the nation by Jeff Sager. And so that's kind of the wild card here. And, of course, there are only 134 teams in FBS. So some FCS teams also have a stronger schedule to date than Navy, according to Sagarin. They've only played one team, Memphis, ranked in Sagarin's top 125. So it's come against a really weak schedule. So I figured that this line, the public's going to be all over Navy. They've been so impressive. I made it 16. Pure power ratings make it a little bit over 2 touchdowns. But like you, I mean, the midshipmen's performance to date, regardless of the opposition, has been so impressive, and they provide such a unique challenge to the opposition. You never see it, so the preparation is very unique. It'll be interesting to see how Marcus Freeman defends this Navy and his troops defend this Navy option. It's the game by far. It's 11 a.m. Central kickoff, the game by far that I'm most excited for, but I'm just concerned a little bit about the class separation here. So I'm going to be on the sideline, but I'm definitely like most people who either have a ticket on Navy or are just watching the game as a fan. I'll be pulling for your midshipman in this one.
All right. Bet River Squares. Don't forget that players can play same-game parlays in college football and NFL games to earn squares at Bet Rivers. Our exclusive squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. Visit BetRivers.com or the Bet Rivers app for more details. Let's get to the SEC. And the SEC, well, everybody has a loss, but only 2 teams are undefeated in conference play, and that is Texas A&M and LSU. Both of them losing on opening weekend. LSU in Las Vegas to USC, and Texas A&M at home at Kyle Field to Notre Dame. A&M now 2.5 and 53.5 over an improving LSU team. That defense has gotten much, much better. Two quality of performances against Ole Miss, and in an emotional letdown spot in Fayetteville this past weekend. Their most complete game of the year. An easy win at Fayetteville, where it's always a close game. Not the case this time. And Whit Weeks is the latest of an emerging star from that LSU defense. Again, A&M Aggies at home 2.5, 53.5. The winner of this one really sits in the catbird seat to get to Atlanta for the SEC championship game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the similar trajectories of these two teams, both losing their season openers and having since reeled off 6 straight victories to place themselves in the thick of the playoff hunt. You know, it's not, I won't go maybe quite as far to say it's a total elimination game, but the team that loses will clearly be up against the ropes and won't have much more room for error. And, of course, the team that wins on Saturday will be in a really good spot, like you said, to make the SEC championship game and hypothetically subsequently qualify for that 12-team playoff. You know, there's so much to like about both these teams. They're both playing well. They've both made improvements since they're, week to week. But I'm a little more bullish on the Tigers right now at this point. You know, entering the season, as you mentioned, LSU's primary questions were on defense. And then they lose their star, their standout linebacker, Harold Perkins Jr., in a Week 4 victory over UCLA in the fourth quarter. But, man, they have really been good. You look at these last 4 games defensively, games against UCLA, South Alabama, Ole Miss, and then last week against Arkansas. They've only has LSU an average of 15 points per game. Meanwhile, their offense has adjusted very nicely to losing just so much talent. I mean, they lose a Heisman Trophy quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Garrett Nussmeier, who's waited his turn, has come in and done a stand-up job. And then they lose 2 first-round receivers in Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, and they've done as good as could be expected there. And perhaps equally as important, in the last several games especially, they've identified a running back. Caden Durham, the true freshman from the state of Texas, has done a good job, averaging 6.2 yards per carry. So LSU is really starting to hit their stride. You date back to 2015 when he was at Notre Dame. Brian Kelly, 13-7 in his last 20 games against the spread as the betting underdog, and that includes 4-1 against the spread as an underdog at LSU. I think LSU wins this game. I'll take LSU plus 2.5 over A&M Saturday night at Kyle Field.
All right, let's go to the Big Ten and Penn State in Wisconsin. Penn State 6-0, Wisconsin 5-2. Penn State up to number 3 in the country in the rankings right now. So I'm not sure if they're the third best team in the country, but if they're not, I don't know who the hell is. So, I mean, it's just that simple. It is quite competitive on the top end from about 1 to 12 in college football this year. But Penn State and Wisconsin is recovered. Man, they were up 11 getting the ball. That's right. USC was punting down 11 in the third quarter in the Coliseum. Wisconsin fumbled the punt, and they didn't handle that little leak in the boat turned into a tidal wave. I mean, it was poor response to some adversity in that game. But since then, they've been a big bully. Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern, they've outscored them 117-16 along the way. So they're kind of getting back into form against some weaker competition. Rutgers especially, man, to beat them like that, they're not used to getting beat that badly. Penn State, well, look ahead. Look at what we have here at the whiteout game next week at home against Ohio State. So I think this is too many points on the road in a look-ahead spot. You think about Penn State, and keep in mind, if they had the 12-team playoff the last 10 years, Penn State would be in the playoff the majority of those years. But it's still, man, they win the games they're supposed to, but they're just trying to get over that hump against the big boys where they really struggle, specifically against Michigan and Ohio State. Michigan, not that strong this year. Ohio State, very strong. So look-ahead spot, Wisconsin improving, especially after losing their quarterback. I'll take the 6.5 at home here versus the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, Wisconsin loses their starting quarterback Tyler Van Dyke to a season-ending injury there in Week 3 against Alabama, and they've steadied the ship now somewhat under their backup Braden Locke. They enter this game against Penn State on Saturday on a 3-game winning streak. Penn State, meanwhile, off a bye after escaping the Coliseum with a 33-30 victory at Southern Cal 2 weeks ago. Really fortunate to win that game. You look at the last 5 matchups, which don't have too much to do with this weekend's game because, with the transfer portal and everything else, you have different rosters from year to year. But Penn State has won and covered each of the last 5 games against Wisconsin, plus the Nittany Lions 8-1 as a road favorite against the spread since the start of 2022. Seems like this is kind of the type of game that James Franklin wins and perhaps covers. He's certainly not adverse to keeping the happy in Happy Valley with a late touchdown or late field goal if need be to get to the winning side of the betting window. But like you, it's just a few too many points. This Wisconsin team is on an upward trend, and interesting game here, but I'll pass as well.
All right, let's get to the next one. And, both of us were liked the points last week in Nebraska against Indiana. And, we talked about the lack of schedule to this point. And this, this was the 5-1 Nebraska team, a well-coached team, a guy that's proven at multiple stops in Matt Rule. And let's face it, Nebraska's problems over the years not been getting blown out. They just lose every close game. One-score losses. I mean, year after year, multiple coaches. Nobody's lost more one-score games. It wasn't a one-score game. To me, Paul, the story is Indiana here, and that is nice, cute story. Okay, that's great. The fighting Signettis. My level of respect went up a lot. The way they dismantled Nebraska, who is geared to play close games, a team that just played a 14-7 game. So to put up 49, they put up 49 on everybody. That's number one in the country at 49 a game, and that's what they scored last week against Nebraska. But also an even further notch, even through some adversity, and Rourke goes down in the second quarter. You bring in Taven Jackson. He originally signed with Tennessee out of the state of Indiana. He's now in his second year back home after 1 year in Knoxville, and he goes 7 for 8 for 91 yards and 2 TDs with no interceptions. My goodness. I mean, could they have been more impressive? And how about when they got their foot on the gas, they lose their starting quarterback, they just continue to plow. If you're watching the game from afar, you had no idea they lost their starting quarterback to this in this game, and where it cripples a lot of really good teams and some offenses, not one sign at all. Can Indiana continue, sustain this now, keep their focus? I think so. Washington's a little better than maybe we thought going into the year, where they were gutted like no other program after their national runner-up season a year ago. Indiana's at home, 6.5. They're 7-0 straight up. They're 7-0 against the spread.
Yeah, like you, I'm just so impressed with Indiana. I tell you, we talk about oftentimes in sports confidence, and this Indiana team, Kurt Cignetti, obviously a confident person who's had success each step of his coaching career. But this team's playing with such confidence. They're playing with swagger. I mean, it's not just a verbal swagger; it's a real swagger. I think they, have high expectations for what they're doing there. And like you mentioned, a lot of teams, they lose their starting quarterback, especially in the age of the transfer portal. They don't have a seasoned backup. They really have a significant drop-off going for the first teamer to the second teamer. And as you mentioned, Taven Jackson, who originally signed with Tennessee out of high school, he started 5 games last year, not really known as a passer. Threw more interceptions, I believe, last year than touchdowns in those 5 starts. But, man, he came in. Things were kind of decided, but before their kneel-down drive at the end of the game, of his first 5 drives, they scored touchdowns 4 times. I think all 4 of those drives quite short, 51 yards or shorter. But he did everything he could have done. So to have that type of depth at that critical quarterback position, I read today that Rourke definitely – still extremely doubtful for this week, but they think he may only miss 1 game. But what a luxury to have a guy like Taven Jackson ready to go. As you mentioned, 7 of 8 for 91 yards against Nebraska. Indiana, as you mentioned, 7-0, both straight up and against the spread. Hadn't trailed at any point this season and squarely in the hunt for the 12-team playoff. Washington, as you also mentioned, lost basically everybody, only one starter back from last year's starting 22 in the national championship loss against Michigan. The Huskies, though, 0-3 away from the friendly confines of Husky Stadium this season. They lost that Apple Cup game to Washington State at Lumen Field, the home of the NFL Seattle Seahawks, and then lost true road games at Rutgers and Iowa. I'm going to stay on this and get on this Indiana bandwagon because I wasn't on it last week, so I'm not necessarily staying on it. But I'm going to get on it before it's too late. Give me Indiana minus 6.5 over Washington.
Yeah, there's no doubt this team exudes confidence, and people think confidence is like a light switch. It's not that way. You have to buy in. You have to be dedicated to what the coach is selling you. And I wonder if that group of players that he brought over, they were kind of telling the existing players, no, man, just buy in and also the schedule. The schedule may have been conducive to kind of get them going. But no, it's preparation, it's execution, it's results. It's not a light switch. And man, and whooping some of those teams it was impressive. They're covering easy, but man, that's not a whole lot of respected opponents on the schedule. This was a different deal, man. And man, all of a sudden, they're minus money to make the playoff right now, the Indiana Hoosiers. So minus 120 out there right now. So it is fun to watch. And man, in theory, where the haves and have-nots, the split's supposed to it's supposed to widen. I mean, the parity in college football with Army, Navy, Indiana. It's UNLV, Boise State. It's been really, really fun this year. All right, let's go to Pitt and Syracuse. This is a Thursday night game in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is 6-0, undefeated. They've had some of these late fourth quarter comebacks. 5-1 against the spread. Eli Holstein, the Alabama transfer we talked about a lot, down from South Louisiana. He's doing it, 285 a game. He's not just a pocket passer. He's got some athleticism as well. He's got some toughness. He's got some moxie and just a real competitor. But he ain't the number one passer in this game. Ohio State transfer Kyle McCord is number 2 in the country at 360 a game. That is only behind Cam Ward at Miami, who's put up ridiculous numbers and has had to because their defense has really given up a lot of points as of late. This line movement has me on Syracuse now. I was kind of iffy, maybe even a little bit more on Pitt at this time. And I love what Pitt's doing, and I love what they're doing. They were going to go a little bit more tempo and trying to modernize and open up their offense, and Holstein just was a real find for them in the transfer portal to execute this. But this is too many points in a matchup here. I still wonder, and McCord did not have a good game in their only loss of the season, that Friday night game at home against Stanford. He threw some picks and did not have his best game. But 360 a game, I just wonder if Ohio State, I know Oklahoma nudged out the wrong quarterback. I'm not so sure that Ohio State didn't do the same as well. I'm taking a Cuse plus a 6 on the road here.
Yeah, this is, as you pointed out, a matchup of two highly recruited transfer quarterbacks. As you mentioned, Eli Holstein there for Pitt, redshirted last year at Alabama, certainly has found a home with the Pitt Panthers. And then Kyle McCord, I think we were all surprised at the end of the regular season last year when he indicated he was opting out of the bowl game and entering the transfer portal. He's landed at Syracuse and doing a stand-up job there for the Orange. Both these teams, what I'm kind of looking at this game, both these teams like to play fast. Both these teams throw the ball quite a bit. Syracuse throws it on 63% of their offensive plays. Pitt on almost 56% of their offensive plays. So we're going to see some tempo. We're going to see a lot of forward passes, total of 61.5. I kind of like the over here. I think there's going to be some scoring on Thursday night. So I'm looking for this showdown of transfer quarterbacks perhaps to produce some points and go over that posted total there at Bet Rivers of 61.5.
Yes, indeed. There'll be a lot of scoring on Thursday night. All right, that's the main games this week, the high-profile games here for this week of college football. Our best bets a little bit later in the week. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott here in the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.